the regular September meeting of the Oak Park Public Library Board of Trustees. Will the secretary please take the roll?
Yes. Trustee Bird Martinez. Absent. Trustee Button.
Here.
Trustee Fairfax.
Here.
Trustee Rogers.
Here.
Trustee Wilkinson.
Here.
I'm here. Trustee Almoro and President Bloom.
Here. Right. First order of business will be to approve the minutes. We have two sets of minutes from the August 19th Finance Committee meeting and then also from our August 26th regular board meeting. I'll give everyone a minute to take a look and then I will entertain motions to approve. I have a motion from Christina. Any seconds?
Second.
Second from Suzanne. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Wonderful. Both sets of meeting minutes are approved. Public comment. I did not receive any public comment prior to this meeting. Ellsworth, I don't believe you received any public comment. So we will move ahead. Oh, I should check. We don't have anybody here to make public comment. We will move ahead to trustee comments and calendar. So Thursday, October the 16th is ILA Trustee Day. Last day to register is October 1st. If you would like to go, please make sure you contact Lee so that she can get you signed up.
Did you say October 1st?
By October 1st for registration. And the date is October 16th.
Those of us who mentioned during the meeting, did anything happen or do we need to reach out to you as well?
If I had a question about if you wanted to go, but I think everybody else who responded via email, but I can register you tomorrow.
Okay, great, thank you.
October 21st, 6 p.m. will be the next Finance Committee meeting. And then October 28th, 6:30 p.m. will be our next regular library board meeting. Is there anything else that we need to add or address on the calendar?
Yes, on the 22nd, we will have our first, September 22nd, we'll have our first governance meeting.
Oh, yes.
All right.
That is true.
At 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Thank you for that.
Of course.
September 22nd. You said 5 o'clock?
Yes.
And did you already reach out to Kamaya and staff to get agendas posted, all that kind of stuff?
Nope, I won't take care of that.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Good deal. All right. Well, that's fantastic. Is this going to be sort of the standing-ish place for the meeting each month? Because with it falling before the meeting, we'll want to have it.
No, I think what we want to do is have it after the meeting so that we will look at proposals that will be presented at the next meeting so that we can go through and look at any changes or questions so Ellsworth has time to bring it back to the staff.
Okay.
So that's the timeline we were thinking of doing. So whatever policies that Ellsworth wants to bring for the following month, we'll look at right after this board meeting, so there's a full month.
Okay, so you're gonna have another meeting in October.
Yes,
Okay.
it's not on the calendar yet.
Okay, I think we need to get, because it will be happening so close to right after, this is the only meeting, so once you get a cadence of them,
Okay.
we'll go ahead and make sure
Okay.
that we can get them on the calendar.
I will talk to Mika and we'll figure it out.
Okay.
So the 22nd, was it?
Yes,
Mondays?
Yeah.
For now.
for now. The plan really is to maybe have it on the Thursday after the meeting, so later in the week, so we don't have 2 meetings in a row, but just because this one fell the way it did, and next week is what it is, that's kind of.
Anything else for trustee comments or calendar? All right, we will move on to the ED's report.
Couple things to add to the written report. Just wanted to start with a moment of gratitude for everybody's participation in the strategic planning session on Sunday. we had a lot to cover, and we covered a lot, and it felt really great to have an opportunity, and still a fairly new group, to be able to speak and connect around issues that impact our library, so thank you for being there. Also wanted to note a little change, a little but important change to the agenda packet. To the award packet, you'll notice at the bottom of each agenda item, there's now a return to agenda button. I know it seems small, but this is really a great way to be able to navigate this fairly dense information. And this was work that Susie and Kamaya did together to figure out how to add this. It kind of speaks to our streamlining and modernizing the packet to make it as accessible and useful as possible. So we will point these out just as they come up.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah, we're excited about it. I talked a little bit in the packet about staff communication related to ICE operations. We are aware that there has been ICE presence in our community. We're working on making sure staff are equipped to continue to navigate the situations, and we will adjust as appropriate, both supporting our staff and patrons as fully as possible and complying with the laws that we must comply with. But we're, of course, keeping an active eye and working with our community partners to be as informed as possible. I also wrote about the IMLS update. There's been more activity since then. On 9/11, a court denied the Trump administration a stay pending the appeal of the preliminary injunction, which essentially means the funding cannot be reduced this fiscal year, but does not speak to next fiscal year. So it gives an answer for right now, but not moving forward. And other than that, I'm happy to answer questions about the report.
I am just very happy. Thank you for highlighting Rob and sharing that interview. It was really nice to read. And it's a reason I'm really proud of this library, and seeing it highlighted in that way was just beautiful. I really appreciated it. So thanks for also just highlighting someone on your staff too. It's nice to see you kind of share that spotlight.
And Latonia as well, the lady got recognized.
I agree that it's a powerful interview and speaks to, when I was trying to summarize it, just to give a sentence teaser in my report, it covers so much. I was like, I don't know how to describe. Rob is a huge asset to the library and the community, and so much of his work is not immediately visible. There's a lot of work that goes into the pieces that we can see. So anytime there's something that we can amplify, I think we're gonna do it.
I know too, also echo that. That was really awesome.
It was fun to see all of the changes. I think sometimes we forget about them because they're so, of course that's what we do at the library, but to actually see the steps and the, what things were and the effort that we had to put in to kind of change them, it was a good time. Also really glad to see that we're still not having, all of the Hoopla users are still pretty happy. They're finding alternatives. Don't
It's so funny. I think it's just because they know me. So it's I've heard complaints, but hey, I'm glad people aren't complaining. Super great. I think, yeah.
People can always be routed to because Lee and her staff would love to hear the specific things that people are saying, because
it's kids. It's what I'm hearing. It's younger. Yeah.
Because kids books are
we go through
that long.
It's what you were saying last time. So, but I also really appreciate learning about Hoopla and how maybe we just don't want to work with Hoopla, and that is convincing too. So I appreciate looking at other ways to make it work.
But it's good to hear because the feedback is the same feedback I'm getting is kids.
Yeah.
That those books are shorter. You can go through 5 in an evening. So knowing that that's where the barrier is, maybe we start looking at resources that are specifically geared towards younger readers, and then maybe the rest of Hoopla is fine for us grown-ups, and that's just something that has to be addressed.
We have other resources for kids, so if you, child or the parent can reach out and we will be happy to find alternatives for them.
Okay.
Well, also, if they have a library card, then they get 5 as well, right? Like, it's not, but yeah, they get 5 at a time.
That covers
They
Monday.
get 5 at a time and come back next week and get.
I was gonna say, that covers Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
What a good problem to
Yeah.
have, though. We have so many avid young readers in our community that we're like,
That's amazing.
this is the complaint, is
And
they
like-
can't use enough digital books.
Within the day, that's when I got their census too, and I'm just like, oh my God, Virginia.
That's awesome,
Yeah.
that's a great problem to
Do
have.
things like the binge pass and help at all with books, or is that just for, it's mentioned here, you mentioned the binge pass on
I don't think I
the
have time to
and then there's the season pass, they don't work for books.
No, it's mostly like shows and stuff, right?
It shows, but like, yeah, like we have Canopy, there are like hundreds of children's books for free, so like we.
On Canopy,
Right.
Okay.
That's good to know, that then they have answers.
I think people just get used to what they do.
Yeah.
So,
Perhaps it's an opportunity to highlight some of the other, less used resources that we have in the
Kids'
library.
resources.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna use that return to agenda button. Anything else for Ellsworth on the ED report?
I think just like looking at it, how you're laying out the report, I really appreciate like seeing the policy kind of federal updates, the ICE updates, the leadership team update, like I appreciated how you framed this month a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I did, yeah, it was really nice to have kind of external updates that are related to the library, in
Okay, great.
addition to internal.
Thank you.
All right, staff reports?
So another dense month for our strategic priorities report. I'm sure folks have already taken a look at it, but just to pull out a few things. The middle and high school services team has done a mural project for the past few years, and on August 1st, there was the unveiling of this year's mural. We had some trustee presence there, lots of community presence, and the event was a really fun way to see the young artists be proud of their work and kind of show what they've been working on, but also to see that community support for young people. The mural is in the teen area on the wall now, so if folks are interested in taking a look, I would invite you to walk over after the meeting or whenever it's convenient for you. This is a project that involves lots of hands going into the prep work and working with the teams and creating a piece. So it's something that lots of folks on staff feel proud of.
Just listening to the kids and the adult and the teen services or the middle school services staff, like the engagement and you really could feel the sense of community at that event. It was really nice.
Yes, the middle and high school services team has just done phenomenal work in connecting with the youth in our community, lifting up, supporting. I think that it's such a special place at the library in terms of bringing in an audience that for a long time was not really welcome in a lot of libraries, and making it feel like there's appropriate ownership, there's collaboration, and I think our staff just put a lot of work into that, so it's great.
I'm curious if a lot of the middle schoolers who are coming from Brooks because of the proximity more than Julian, or if they have an idea, they're probably not asking or keeping track, I imagine.
I would assume that many are from Brooks just because it is pretty close, but I can ask if they have any idea of.
Yeah, I think that's the general, and then we have somebody who has been working more to reach out to some of the private schools, get them here. Latanya and I were both involved early last year in like a transportation conversation.
Yeah.
Kind of got hung up on who owned it and insurance, but it was kind of a busing idea of how to get the kids from Julian here, and then like similarly, the kids from Brooks to the CRC, like.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, I remember there was a conversation about getting folks out to the CRC.
Yeah, and so it was, you're getting the people you're closest in proximity to, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's general.
Well, the mural project, is that expected to be an annual thing, or is this a one-time?
It has been annual for the past, is it 3 years?
Okay.
So all 3 are up in
Okay,
the middle high school space. There's sort of a conversation starting about, are those considered part of the permanent art collection? Are they more ephemeral? What is the lifespan of those pieces? And I think there's a lot of stakeholder voice in that conversation, and we're kind of figure out what the best path forward is. But for now, they're prominently displayed in the middle of high school. Also note, unfortunately, we've had an increase in opioid overdose instances at the library. The positive part of that is staff response. Rob's staff and all library staff are continually trained on administering Narcan and other life-saving interventions. And we've had multiple instances where it really has been life-saving work from library staff. And we mourn the fact that that's necessary, but I think it's also important to acknowledge that hard work is being done. This is another issue where we're trying to work with our community partners to figure out what can we do together to address this in a meaningful way. But we did note in this report that at least in one instance this month, staff both used Narcan and CPR. So that's a true emergency situation, and to have people who are equipped to do that seamlessly on site is a really positive thing for the community.
And the Narcan kits, those are still available to the public, correct?
Yes. A long entry about summer reading.
As it deserves,
Say, did we not just say with the average
Do we get a
small
bead
readers?
after reading this?
Yes, there was a special book.
It's a great
Forever report your.
And so this is a huge undertaking for the staff. I mean, I think that they're already planning next year. So it's sort of a perpetual part of what we do. Everybody wants to talk about numbers, and so those are included here. Over 2,200 people registered for the children's program. Over 27,000 leaves and stickers given out, which is awesome.
Good job, everyone.
I loved being new to the community, seeing so many necklaces out in public, so many kids proudly wearing their summer reading necklaces, and my kids also really loved it. So I think I love the process here. I think it works for lots of people. Adult summer reading also impressive turnout with 391 people registering, and that's great.
Yeah.
We always see fewer numbers in adult summer reading, but I think it's still an important thing for those folks that participate.
I think it's because we don't get beads, but.
I mean, we could extend.
Darn jobs. Getting in the way of reading. You skipped over the 1.8 million minutes of reading and the 3.4 years worth of time for the kids reading. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And if you haven't taken a look at the linked report, I encourage you to do so, because there's a more granular breakdown there that's it's pretty amazing.
Unfortunately, I have to go, but I've shared my thoughts with you, and there are a few. Because this is a pretty slim meeting, but I wish you all well.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Just a brief note about the new staff book group. We do lots of public-facing discussion groups and book clubs, so to have an opportunity for staff to use those skills with each other feels meaningful. And there was one meeting in August, and we're looking forward to kind of next steps with that. But it was well received by staff, and we're excited to kind of see where it goes. I always get really excited about opportunities for staff to use the skills that they use in public programming in an inward-facing way, because I think it gives an opportunity to build internally and to kind of show your skills, which is cool.
I also love that initiative came from different departments.
Yes.
Like people from all different.
Yeah, and there was a lot of input as to how it would look and how it would function, and I expect a fairly robust development as it moves forward. A list of facilities improvements and changes, including the concrete floor repair that I communicated about as it was happening. It was a project that we expected to be pretty small, that became fairly significant, but now is completely taken care of. We had a small natural gas leak at Maine, also found very quickly resolved. We were able to open as normal. And then at Maze we had a tree limb fall, and that tree has been replaced already. So those pieces are done. They were able to remove the damaged tree and replace it with something. The old tree was invasive. They replaced it with a more appropriate native tree and added a little bit more around it. So it's too bad that it had to
I'd
go.
like to know what country, but that's.
We know what kind of tree.
I have to look it up.
I can look it up for you.
It's not really.
Siberian
It
elm.
was replaced or came down.
What was
Siberian
replaced?
elm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Siberian elm was.
Yeah, Siberian
It
elm,
was the one that came down.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And two buckthorns. And two buckthorns.
Ooh, 2 buckthorns, we got -2 buckthorns.
Minus 2
Yeah.
buckthorns.
You need to be excited about this.
Yeah.
So, there was a Facebook post about
Was there?
it, yes.
I saw the pictures.
I missed it.
I mostly
I
just
walked
like
by.
pictures.
I want to
missed
try.
it.
Oh, I'm too.
We
No, I
talked,
mean, I walked like 5.
we talked a lot about communication around it, because I think especially for immediate neighbors, it's a big deal to see trees coming down. Because they removed and planted the same day, I think that sort of answered the question before it was asked. So, as far as I know, we didn't get any specific.
Yeah, that's pretty great that
Yeah.
you were able to do that quick.
Matt put it together, and it went pretty seamlessly. And we talked about our different marketing tools in the anti-racism and equity section of the report, including some of you probably saw the public sidewalk decals that went
Yes.
out, talking about the QR code for accessing digital resources. It was a fun project to kind of see how it would go. We hadn't done that before. And we did see new cardholder signups and users come back, which is great. But happy to.
Click-through rate.
I was gonna say, that was really impressive.
happy-
And engagement rate, but, yeah.
And any other questions about the general staff report, happy to answer.
Yeah, I have a question about capital improvement stuff. I've heard from parks that they're having trouble securing day laborers due to ice threats and like all that. So I was just wondering, like, are we seeing that? Are we seeing that any delays with construction or any of that sort of thing?
That's what I've heard of, yeah.
Okay.
And I think that most of the work that we have done is sort of with vendors that we've used before. We typically get smaller teams of people because our jobs are usually sort of contained. But I haven't heard of that issue with our network of vendors yet.
Okay, just keep us posted. I think it's an important story to kind of share with the community at large too, so it's on my mind.
Not a question, but I had two things I wanted to sort of point out. One was the Chicago Tribune getting the full replica edition, because that was a comment that we got from the community around having more newspaper-like feeling. So thank you for responding to that in the way that we could, and hopefully we'll get some more data on how that's being used and if the usage is going to change. I also saw Billy had in the budget some additional resources that might also be either toggled towards print or digital, so we might get some more information from the Tribune News. And then, because I will never not mention it, I saw it in the adult summer reading, if I can find it, learning about taking courses on LinkedIn Learning for free. If you have seen my LinkedIn, you know I have 7 1,000 little certificates. And none of them have my name on them because your name won't be on them, but it is absolutely amazing that your library card can, like, do you want to learn how to code? Your library card can teach you how to do that. Like, there's an entire world of retraining yourself that you can do from home, from your phone. And if you have been wanting to use LinkedIn Learning or you've been wanting to do that sort of self-education, it's library card sign up month. You should come get a library card and be able to access that for free. So I think that's a very underutilized resource, but a really, really great one.
Yeah, we just had a kind of presentation on LinkedIn Learning at work, and I was sitting there thinking, I can already get it from my library, can you?
Not me telling my whole team that's how we're doing training.
I also love, there was something in here with a patron talking about printing, and that they didn't know that they could print. And now they have the, the capacity to do these kind of color-coded things for their home environment.
Yeah, they said their black and white printer wasn't gonna be used anymore, because they could color print at the library.
I was gonna say, I saw color coding, I was like, that's
Right?
my kind of
I
page.
know, me too. I was like, oh, spreadsheets on the refrigerator for the home
So it reminds me
environment.
of Mallory's Gantt chart and all this going,
Yes.
Susie, do you see that in your future?
Yeah. I'm excited.
And then it looks like Latanya was honored as a panelist on the Urban Library Council. For folks at home, can you talk a little bit about what the Urban Library Council is and why Oak Park participates in the Urban Library Council?
Yeah, Urban Library Council is an organization that is membership-based, so you pay to be part of it, and it connects you with libraries across the United States. I believe that's it.
Yeah.
And we use ULC in a number of different ways. So there are very active sort of web hubs that connect staff at different levels. So I'm part of the executive director group. Other people are part of different aspects. And it's a really great way to professionally network, to learn from colleagues across the country. We are, I would say, on the smaller end of the spectrum in terms of the libraries that are part of ULC. So lots of the member libraries are giant city systems. But there's also others our size, and it's a great sounding board, it's a great resource. It's really changed a lot in the last few years in terms of kind of organizing and cataloging past conversations. So now when something comes up that we want to learn more about parking fees at public libraries, you can kind of go into a member hub and search for past conversations. I know I reach out to many directors that I've sort of met through ULC to talk about issues. ULC also has in-person and virtual learning events, so there are weekly director calls, there are leadership forums, and different things you can participate in. This example with Latanya's participation in this panel is a great example of staff at different levels throughout the organization kind of maximizing this opportunity to connect with others in their part of the field and speak about our library, about what we're doing in concert with other public libraries. And Susie or Lee, I don't know if you have more to add about past involvement with ULC.
Latanya's been very active in her ULC cohort, really presenting and has been a part of a couple of different grants. Just beyond the book, some of the mentorship programs that she has done here. Some libraries tried to approach mentorship with doing it in-house and having these trainings, whereas Latanya was able to get 2 different mentorship groups that already exist in Oak Park to come in. And so we weren't having to kind of reinvent the wheel. These folks were skilled, they brought their own really good food, and they were really good at talking to the different kids and providing them with that guidance. And so she was really kind of continues to share about the work that they're doing in their space and how they've been able to make these really lasting connections with the teams and bring them in. So I'm really proud of all of her work. She's going to be going to the ULC conference paid for by the grant in October.
I love that the topic goes belonging, it goes very well with what we discussed over the weekend.
And when I did a call with ULC when I started in this position. My previous library was also a member, but that's just a practice that they do. And one of the things that I talked to the director of ULC about was thinking about board opportunities as well. I think that that's sort of an ongoing conversation, and it's a really great resource. So how can it be leveraged with our trustees as well? Because you think about the network of trustees that would be brought together with that. And as different issues are amplified and change around the country, like I said before, it's just so powerful to be able to seamlessly reach out to people and say, we know each other from the ULC conversation. Can we talk about how you're distributing that?
All right, any other questions or comments for the strategic priorities report?
Just on the special collections. First a comment and a question. I loved seeing that there was a researcher based in Italy and someone from the Illinois State Historical Society. Like, it's really nice to see that there's special collections get usage outside of our community that broadly. The question is the increase in patron interest. Like, was there anything you could track that to?
I think, so, we've taken on the local history collections, so I think a lot of those requests were local histories of those two special collections. But I think it's just kind of the work and the collections being known now to, research and academic fields, and so I think it tells the story of like the work that the special collections crew is doing, and kind of making sure that those collections are like at the forefront and that people know that we have them. So yeah, we're super excited.
That's great.
All right, then we'll move on to additions and separations. Looks like the majority of this is the end of summer staffing. Am I interpreting that correctly?
I would say the majority is.
What we have in the title. Nice.
Any questions? Comments, concerns? Staff changes report. All right, if there are no comments, then we will move on to financial reports.
I just want to make a comment that I appreciated the Google Sheets, but they didn't help me, so they're not necessary for me anymore. So I appreciate the effort, and then I thought, no, I can read faster than I can figure this out, so I appreciate it, thank you.
As soon as I saw that, I was like, this is not gonna be helpful.
No, what? I had lofty ideas, but the Google's, thank you, but not necessary again for me, so.
I think that's a great example though of, let's try it. And,
Yeah.
and if anybody else felt different or is like, well, that version didn't work, but if I could get it different, like we want to keep working to figure out the easiest way for this information to be digested.
I think it's just a lot of information.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think I was pretending that I would be,
Did you think it was gonna get easier?
maybe easier, I just thought I was more clever than more information, but I was not.
That's good that you said something too, rather than having
Right,
doing it.
right, I will not.
Appreciate that.
I keep forgetting this is August.
It's so nice seeing that the Friends is over the big veteran. And that moving the failure, in addition to being a lot of work, has actually made it more successful.
Yeah.
So.
Do we have any, I see our tax revenue is still delayed, do we?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, just
Okay.
check
I just,
everything.
you know, since you guys printed this like 20 minutes ago, if you heard.
I figured you would let us know.
But you mentioned before we're fine for 3 to 6.
Yeah, Elizabeth, I don't know if you wanna answer that question from here.
You can answer.
Is it okay to answer from here?
If everyone can hear me.
If everyone can hear me, I just put the recording is all. We talked about this in the finance committee, and, because right now, if you look at the financial report, the financial report summary, the first page of it, it shows how much cash we have on hand, but that was at the end of August, right, August 31st, we had operating cash available just a little over $6 million. But really, the number you should be looking at, though, is the Illinois Funds account, the Illinois Funds investment account, which is the number right above that, 4,131,000.
Okay.
You see where I'm at, 4,131,000. That's really our gauge of like how many months can we operate, because that's where we pull our money for operating from. And if we spend $1 million a month, how many months can we operate on $4 million? 4 months. So with that, and not knowing when the property tax bills will arrive or when the due date will be, we are looking into a couple of options to with some banks to get some funding to see us through. It's in the form of TAWs, tax accepting warrants, which we warrant as a whole list of requirements to do that. We also can have a line of credit that we're pursuing, or looking into with Byline Bank if the TAW is not an option for us.
I feel like the last time this happened, the last time I was paying attention to it, there was we got the link to buy one, and then it was like in the door, then paid like 3 minutes later.
We never actually received any funds from, at least in my time, we haven't received any funds, but we're set up to receive them if needed. And that's where we're going to position ourselves over the next 2 months. We'll make sure we're there if needed. It's, a lot of unknowns and a lot of things out of our control, but what is in our control? What can we do? The TAW and the line of credit.
And the TAW is more work but less interest, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Byline is less work but more interest, so.
Any other questions on the financial reports or the resolutions and disbursements? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the resolutions and disbursements.
So moved.
Moved by Megan,
Second.
seconded by Christina. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, resolutions and disbursements approved. Additional reports. iGov.
We're meeting this Saturday, so there's no update right now, but I can share what we're going to be talking about. ICE is kind of on everybody's mind, so like we're trying to talk about what each governing body is doing to protect their constituents, their communities, their staff. So we're discussing that. We're talking also still some level setting, so just figuring, trying to talk through when are the meetings, we've talked about that, but also how do you report on iGov at your meetings? Because my hope would be that they do, but I don't think that everyone does. And what do they communicate, and how do they communicate with their, like, do they have a monthly newsletter, what's the process for that, so that we can kind of coordinate better, and also get a sense of like when they set their budget, when they set their strategic priorities, just so that we can all kind of like know the cadence of this work. And we're still talking about dates. I know I sent that survey to you all about just if we were to move, and like, we don't have to go fast at this, but I do hope it's something we do. We're the only governing body that has one regular meeting a month. Every other one has at least two. So we are in the best position to do it. And I just feel like it's a commitment to community members of making sure that people aren't stretched to have to choose between meetings and have to choose what they care about, and for ourselves too. And so we could keep Tuesdays, we could go to a different Tuesday, we could go to a different date on the 4th. Like, I think we can be creative, but I just hope we can kind of keep it as a goal to work towards. Besides that, I think, let me see, did I have anything else for IGO? I think that's about it.
COG, big showing for COG, Suzanne, myself, and Ellsworth all went. There were 4 major topics, so this was sort of the first meeting since the election, so general coordination, introductions, what governing bodies do what. There was a lot of discussion on preparedness for ICE and ICE being in the community, what individual organizations are doing, what they're messaging to their staff, addressing community engagement in general. And Suzanne, I volunteered you to speak with Audrey at D200. They are looking for ways to reach out to these silent portions of the community that are not naturally engaging, and I know you did some work with Holistic on that. So I said that you would be a good person to connect with to talk about how we did that last year.
Okay.
And then lastly, there was a discussion on addressing substance abuse. It was primarily around preteens and teens, vaping and edibles, not alcohol and the other things that sort of have been addressed traditionally in the past. And so how do we address those differently? Obviously, we have lots of teens and preteens here, so we'll need to be a part of that conversation. But it sounds like we're seeing that among the adult population here as well. So something probably to think about and look into, that there is for some reason an increase in the community in general, not just here at the library, and sort of coordinate with the other governing bodies around that. Did discuss the new DEI director, Kelly Keys, at the village. I think that's the big points. Oh, and they did decide this meeting will now be virtual. So hopefully that will start to make it a little bit more accessible to folks in the future. But this meeting, still 8 o'clock on Wednesday, but it will be virtual. So opens it up at least a little bit more to folks. All right, Planet Green.
There's not another meeting, so no update.
Okay. Friends.
Friends also will not meet until October 20th.
Okay. Out with Purpose.
So the main thing is there, so I'm gonna be meeting with Tim Thomas, who's on the board there. We're gonna get together to kind of talk more about how we can collaborate. But I did want to let everybody know that the Out with Purpose / Apaga's annual gala is going to be at Garfield Park Conservatory this year on November 1st, which I'm really excited about. It's like kind of putting three things together, you know, and we get some book reading in there before, then I'm kind of like right all the way together, but that's November 1st. Tickets are out or for sale now, so if people are interested in going, please consider that. It's a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun that year that we went when we had the award. So I recommend it, and I'll give you more update after Tim and I have met.
Collaboration for early childhood.
I don't have an update here, so I haven't heard from Shannon or Nancy, but I know they have their hands full, so yeah, I don't know. I don't remember too where we left it, was,
We're looking at
both,
IGAs.
right?
Yeah,
It's
and,
just D97 kind of, okay, yeah, I'll keep on Nancy, she's just got a lot.
okay. All right, we have no unfinished business, so we will skip to new business, draft 2 of the fiscal year 26 budget. So,
Join us.
Feels like old business. Maybe it's new business.
but you made it shiny.
It's
Yeah.
the
New
business.
business.
It's the business.
The main show.
Yeah.
So do you recall the draft one? I was here, I think it was like 3 weeks ago, and we talked about that draft almost being good enough to approve as is. It was, and still is. So draft 2, you're gonna see 4 lines that changed. And have you figured out which ones they are yet? No. I will tell you, there's one expense line, so that's the property tax line. Based on the discussion that we had at the last meeting, we went back and looked at our expenses, and we did bump up a couple lines. I'll talk about that in a minute. But to do that, we needed to increase our revenue to keep a balanced budget. So the property tax revenue line, instead of going up 4% like it was in draft 1, you'll see it went up 4.3%. That difference is about $35,000 in this draft 2 budget, so $35,000. So where did we add these expenses for the $35,000? I don't know what page it's on the board packet, but it's on the second page of the draft 2 budget, 67. I'm sorry, what was that, 66?
It starts on 66.
Okay, so 67. If you go towards the bottom of 67, that's where we'll focus our time, where the increases expenses increased. So the first one is in the equity and anti-racism section. There's learning and development. We added $8,000 worth of expenses there. So that's one place where we added expenses. And that's, Elsa, I don't know if you want to talk about why we thought it was important to add there.
As we embark on bringing in a new person in the director role for equity and anti-racism, we wanted to make sure they were equipped to do the training work that needed to happen. And we've spoken a little bit at this table around our plan to do training with all staff now, but with the intention of a more strategic curriculum when something new comes in. So this will give us more resources for that person to be able to take quick action and not need to create a curriculum plan and then wait for the following budget year. This could be used both for internal and external learning opportunities, but also related to programs, activities, other things that fall in that umbrella. And again, adding that to a year that we're bringing in a new director for that area seems like a really effective way to help them feel like they're able to contribute right away.
So just to be clear, even though it's on a learning and development line, the funds could be allocated towards equity and anti-racism programming as well, if necessary.
The line's intention would be learning and development, but things can be.
It's never been allocated just towards internal or external. It's been both. That for that specific line.
Okay.
There is a separate staff development line specifically for staff training and conferences and things like that. This line in the equity and anti-racism section can be used to bolster that, or depending on the focus, if there's more external programming, it can go towards that as well. So it's a to be determined, but it is a placeholder, and we thought it would be better to bump that line up to support the new director coming in.
So external, learning and development is like, programming is same as external learning and development.
I think a lot of the
There's-
things are gonna be considered
Right.
learning.
Yeah, it's, when coming up with like how to name this line 3 years ago, this is the learning, like, we just, a general category that would kind of characterize what we anticipate to happen with this. And also this can evolve too as we get into next year and we actually know what the money's being spent on, we can be more specific or not, I mean, just,
No, I like that, I think that it points out that the learning and development kind of has like these multi-sides to it, but it is, and valuing programming as learning and development. It's good.
So that's one area, and then also in library materials, there's 2 lines that we increased. The print materials line from draft 1 to draft 2 increased by $14,000. And that was being, well, partly, shortly after our last meeting, we learned from one of our vendors that there was gonna be a price increase. They may have heard us talking and go, oh, well, you know. But, so joking aside, I think the price increases from vendors, but also we added some additional funds there there's this potential for tariff-related increases that are unknown. And so we want to make sure that we at least have a little bit of cushion there to respond if needed, to ensure that we are still meeting we're trying to meet the demands of our community.
It's really ironic that we asked you to do a 4.3, 4.5, just in case, and like the just in case happened between
Yeah, well,
last meeting and this.
Well,
It literally was like a day after that we got 2 vendors that are like, we're increasing pricing.
Guys, we gotta delay putting these videos
So
up.
it's- But typically, we do see some changes between, as we get more solid information, more solid quotes, but we had, not a lot of changes between draft 1 and draft 2. And so it is still possible actually, I'm not even speaking into reality. We hope that there's not a lot of changes.
Knock on some wood.
Yes. So that was print materials, but also digital content. We went ahead and added digital content, increased an additional $13,000, again, to help meet the community's demand for these resources. It is not going to get your hoopla borrows back, but I checked. But it'll, I think that's one of those lines where we could always use more funds to help meet that demand. And also potential increases there as well, you never know, so.
Never know.
Well, we just talked about adding more KPIs on technology and technology uses to the strategic report, so having additional funds for patron-facing digital options might be something we want to have. Even if we can't get our hoopla borrows.
So, and that's focusing still on the library materials section, I also want to highlight that in my attempt to try to clarify the digital content versus digital services, this is subscriptions and services, like I put the, in parentheses, external, which means
Much
it's facing towards the
appreciated.
community.
Thank you.
And then the internal facing, so just in case, if you lose your spot in the budget, you know where you're at.
Much appreciated.
And then, last time we also talked about the library materials budget, best practice being between 10 and 12%. So that, Illinois actually updated its standards for libraries, and the updated version is 8 to 12%. However, we still internally want to target that 10% or higher. This does move us towards there, it doesn't get us exactly there, we're at 9.71%. So. And then another change for this, or the last change I'll discuss, Virginia, based on your feedback about including percentages, like how much percentage of expenses versus percentage of revenue, we did add that grayed out column to kind of talk about how much each line represents of the budget. It was easier to do it in the Excel sheet than it would have been to create a chart or a picture, so.
Thank you.
And our approach to this draft was to still keep that type stewardship lens on and to try to be really strategic. the invitation to bring back another draft, with some increases led to some deep conversations at the leadership team, level around kind of revisiting what we had reduced to get to the balanced budget in the first draft. And as Billy had shared at the last board meeting, there was just so much work put into that first draft that the coming back through this time and making adjustments was a less heavy lift. But we're happy to answer questions about sort of the whys and the hows that we picked these particular lines, or if there is an appetite for another draft with additional changes up or down, we're happy to continue that work.
I had two questions. Number one, how did the staff feel about where the changes were made?
When you say the staff, you know,
Like the leadership, like the team, as you made changes to the
Well, I think
budget,
that-
how are they feeling about where
we were,
those dollars
the
went?
leadership team, we were comfortable with, the first draft, and then going back through and inviting to kind of say like, okay, well, where could we use some extra funds? Those were the places that stood out to us. But I will say, something that, we talked about a lot internally is, I mean, I laugh because it's like, I'm trying to say this like, seriously, like, 75% of the budget, or nearly 75% of the budget is people, and we could always use more money there. I mean, I could bump this up to 8% and still not have enough funds in the people section,
Yeah.
you know, so like, so I think, you know, through, internally, like, we kind of like, we had done the work already, we kind of managed our expectations, but then given a little bit more, and we could make draft one work. And I know the materials team, the collections team can make, you know, can make the previous materials budget work, but if you give us a little bit more, we can of course do more. It's the same with any line.
That was one of the reasons I really wanted the percentages on there, because literally 3/4 of the budget is people, and then that really narrows down the rest of the conversation when you're talking about what are you gonna take out of the budget.
Right, and then adding that 0.3% got you $35,000. $35,000 won't even get us a part-time position.
No.
So,
Right, I was thinking, why is it gonna be, oh, yeah. Because that doesn't do much.
But I guess what you're saying, like, does the leadership team feel like it's worth it, I guess then? Like, cause I know I was on that push list to kind of like see a second draft that had a higher, and things have changed, but I'm hearing now like kind of two conflicting things. One is that you could make that first budget work. But would you do it to the maybe fullest like ability? Like, I don't know, what's your?
If you weren't open, I'll let Ellsworth answer this after I say that. If you weren't open to the 4.3, that new news we got from one of our vendors about the print materials would have said we had to move something else around.
Got it.
We had to go back to a different line and say, what else aren't we going to do? But
Yeah.
because we had a little bit of leeway, we didn't have to, you know, then go have that difficult conversation with the other lines.
And we haven't had the conversations about tariffs or, those things haven't come down the pike yet, we're not seeing those yet, so this budget has to, I guess, anticipate that.
I mean, we have seen it in some capacity, and not too much, I'm not sure about the, collections, but I know the table wrapping was happening before I started, before I left.
Uh-huh.
And it's a Japanese company, and so that was originally quoted one price, and I don't remember.
Yeah, it did increase, but we did have
We
enough
have the
funds in the
money,
capital
but
line.
so yes, it has affected us already in different ways.
And yeah, so it's certainly seeing it more in the facilities, supplies and maintenance costs.
Okay, so we've already seen it there, just not maybe in collection.
Yes, yeah, like when you see like, I forget what they're calling it, but basically you see like these adjustments to your invoices to account for these additional expenses.
Oh, so you can really calculate exactly.
In a few places, like they point to, they're saying like, oh yeah, we had to raise our price, but here's why.
Chairs and, yeah.
That would be
Yeah,
very,
the chairs
chairs
and the wrapping of our tables on the third floor.
not to get sidetracked, but that would be that would be very good information, I think, for us to have as we look at monthly reports next year, see how much of our budget had to adjust based off of
Yeah, so
those
far,
increases.
so far we've been able to absorb it, but yeah, it's,
But just to see it, even if we absorb it, to see what it actually is,
Yeah.
because it's still a hard cost.
And to communicate, like, whether we pass this budget or the, like, to communicate the narrative of like, why, you know? I mean, it sounds like there's such a need for support for collections, but I hear you that of course, like, staff is the library, and so we're not really adding to that. But I know last time you said like, the budget as it was going to like, almost not maintain services, right? Like, I mean, it was really questionable of whether we could maintain the same quality and same output. So with this budget, do we feel closer to that? Like, is that,
I think this gives us a little bit of assurance in the areas that we added to, that we will be able to maintain or move forward a little bit more. I think if our buying power is impacted by tariffs or other changes with the materials, this increase gives us a higher likelihood of not seeing a decrease in availability and seeing longer wait times, all the impacts that come from that. I think there's probably less volatility in the costs of training as related to tariffs and things like that. But I still think that was sort of the first thing that came to mind when we were talking about the last board meeting was how can we use this money to really push our strategic initiatives, and that feels like a really good opportunity.
okay,
Just for context, I would say one of the things that is a positive and a negative about most libraries is we operate largely in a scarcity model. So we always assume that there's not enough money to do what we really want to do. And so we do approach the budgeting process with a lot of care and a lot of intention around, and we are so aware every day of where our funding comes from, and that our decisions directly impact the people that we serve in the community. So I think the 4% felt like, we talked about the original aspiration of coming in at 3. That was not going to be possible without significant reductions in service. So 4 seemed like a place that we could still say, we're trying to be team players with the rest of the taxing bodies. We're trying to live those equity values in not contributing to general cost of living, but still be able to offer adequate service. This, the modest increase from 4 to 4.3, again, I think gives us some assurance, not small a assurance, like we're optimistic that will cover the buying power fluctuations because of tariffs and other changes. But like Billy said, I mean, we could take a 5-minute break in this meeting and come back with a 10% that impacts the people lines. And I think we know what those decisions would look like. We would be, so I totally hear what you're saying, Christina, about sort of like, this is 2 different stories, and I believe the 4%, we would end up making service reductions.
okay, that's kind of, I want to hear that so that I can relay that to the community, because I think you're giving like almost a softer message, like, because your team is incredible, of course you can make it work, but like, if we're going to do it well and we vote this 4.3, then I just want to be able to say services would be compromised if we didn't, so.
And the 4.3 does not pave the way for a year of innovation and new service.
Yeah, right, it barely maintains.
It's sort of like, we think we can do it with this. And another thing to keep in mind is we are a library that has a good budget. We're not a library that has to worry about keeping the lights on, and I think some of the things that we hear from colleagues across the country. That said, to be a public library is very expensive, and just the operational costs, I think, surpass what most people would expect. So it's difficult to talk about the budget in a way that doesn't either sound like, oh, we just have plenty of money, or we're scraping by and we wish we could do all these things differently. It's always a middle ground.
I just don't want community members to be like, why is Christina asking for like a higher tax levy?
I want to bring up one other thing that I want Billy to talk about, which is in the revenue side, the interest and losing that money, because that's another thing about, increasing levies, that's a money that we're gonna probably lose because we may lose principal having to pay for not getting the taxing money, and we think interest rates are going down on that. So that's another revenue loss we have that we have to compensate for.
Yeah, right now,
Potential.
we're fairly confident that the interest line is solid. When Linda, our manager of accounting and finance, when she did her calculations, we assumed a 3.9% interest on a lower balance, and this is what we came up with. The Federal Reserve is meeting today, or met today, and I think they're planning to reduce rates. I don't know if they did or not, but I would assume that they're going to, and into next year. And what Megan was just talking about, we're losing out. We haven't received our second installment property taxes for this year. It's millions of dollars that we are not collecting interest on right now, and that will impact us for the coming months. And then also, if we end up having to take out a TAW, a tax accepting warrant, or use that line of credit, we're going to be paying interest on that money as well. So, I think that's a line to watch out for. We'll be able to explain if we're not able to hit that number, but we're confident with the number that's there.
Yeah, and I was speaking more in terms of the 4.3 versus the 4, giving us that padding, because we're also gonna lose that revenue.
Yeah.
Potential, but we think.
For the folks at home, I wanted to call out the per household rate. So the per household rate for this year was about $489. And this the 5.3 budget would put us at 510 per
Yeah,
household.
4.3, the 4.3. The difference between draft 1 and draft 2, based on in that calculation, is about $1 per household.
Okay.
So,
For the year.
yes,
Yes.
for the year.
Per household.
Yes, it was like and I actually have a typo in my memo, and I gotta call it out now. In the property taxes section of the memo, assuming all factors are equal, a 4.3% increase in the library's property tax levy would translate to about $21 more per household annually. In the last draft, I said that was $20 more annually. So that's, you're not talking about a large
Per household.
shift. You go from 4 to 4.3, $35,000, and that's, I don't want to belittle $35,000, because it is a lot of money. But when you spread that over our entire community, it's about $1 per household.
And besides, there's just a lot of moving parts here in terms of the number of staff and buildings and what, in the search for the new directors, if there's a need to change the pay level in that process, do you feel like you have, is that accounted for?
Oh, yeah, because we talked about the level 7 versus level 8.
It is not accounted for.
Not the different level,
No,
But-
the positions at their current grades are funded, are scheduled to be funded.
right?
An increase in grades would require reallocation within the budget.
Right.
And that, I would say that goes for all of our positions. We have them budgeted according to grade and full-time, part-time.
That line is budgeted pretty tight right now. There's not a lot of cushion in there, and that's what I'm saying. I could use some not even to add pay increases. What if you hire additional summer assistants or interns? A lot of things have to work. We have to have right now the budget cannot absorb that. We would have to have perhaps if there was a position that went unfilled for the first couple months of the year, that buy us a little bit of grace or a little bit of cushion. It depends on those things to be able to do other things. It's scheduled, I don't, without talking completely about how we budget for the wages and salaries line, it's right now it's pretty tight. There's not room for, those adjustments, not for a director, not for really any position.
So does this mean next year we're looking at potentially a larger increase on 75% of our budget to be able to keep up with market wages?
I don't believe that's true. What I think, what I'm, in saying all of what I just said is just expect us to be like we are this year. We're, at this point in the year, our revenue and expenditures were 66.67% through the year, and our wages and salaries are 66.22%. It's gonna, we're gonna be spending right where we're at the point of the year, which isn't a bad thing. Just know that it's tight, and so it's not like you're gonna be able to do a bunch of extra things.
My concern for the future is benefit costs, specifically health insurance, and we are part of a consortium model around that, so that's a positive impact on it, but we've all said it in different ways, let's not have another 8% year. If health insurance premiums went up 11%, 14%, I mean, that's, in many ways, that's out of our control.
Correct.
So I worry more about the volatility of the health insurance benefits.
Health insurance, and then IMRF is also out of our control, or the pension payments that, by statute, if whatever IMRF says we have to pay, we have to pay.
When I was asking about, I appreciate they brought up the grade level, but I was talking about just kind of smaller variants, like is there enough room even within the grade level of that position, or those positions, the director positions, like you are interviewing people, you've got, two fabulous people, and they're both looking for something a little more than it was listed.
If we budgeted, without talking specific numbers, if we budgeted $1,000 for this position, $1,000 for this position, could we do $1,000 plus $10? Like, yes, there's the wiggle room that we can negotiate within the range. I'm comfortable with that. Just moving it up a grade moves it, that's, that's getting to the range of like $20,000 or more, where we don't have that wiggle room right now. We may have.
Immediately, that would be something, if it were to happen, it would happen down the road.
Yeah, I know you have to talk about getting, sometimes when you get halfway through a year, you can start saying like, where are we actually spending? But once you build something in, if you make a change halfway through the year, you gotta budget then for the next year to continue to afford it. So, but keeping all those things in mind is weird.
I just was thinking, given that there are, two director positions to fill, just wanna make sure that
Yeah, I have that
Very
concern as well.
able to kind of.
Especially if we, for the equity director, we want to make sure, as we said, we want to make sure they're set up for success. We want to make sure we get the right person. So, do we have that? Yeah.
So, the answer is no, we don't have it. We could add it, that would be multiple, how much of an increase do we want to increase the grade?
To go from a grade 7 to a grade 8, that's where I'm at least $20,000.
I was gonna say, that would
Which
probably
is-
put us at
yeah.
4.5.
Yeah, and I think Mika and I had I thought a good conversation after the Sunday session about sort of, is that position graded appropriately? What is the long-term vision for what that would look like? And I thought about it a lot Sunday and yesterday, kind of thinking through what's the best strategy right now. I think filling that position at a grade 7, which is the director of the director level, is logical, and I think what that would give us is an opportunity to regrow, build back up to where we were, get a little bit clearer vision as to where the next steps are, and then if the decision was, all right, we've got our feet back underneath us, we're ready to take another step. If it was, the conversation could then be, does that mean adding a grade 8 in addition to a standing grade 7? And if so, that means we either could promote somebody who was in the grade 7 into the grade 8 and decide what to do with the vacancy, or to bring in a new person in the grade 8, I think would be.
Or promote the person in grade 7.
Right, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
is that we would have some options. I want to be mindful of the gap in this position and in the gap of some of the work that we're hoping that this person leads us in, and start them at a level that allows for that to happen. I also think it gives a natural fit into the cohort of the leadership team and fits well within the existing organizational structure. I do feel like that is a position to carefully watch as it evolves and think about what people power do we need connected to that position. The other thing is we might say grade 7 is perfect, and we need to add a librarian level, on an assistant level, or whatever that might look like. So I think the growth could be in multiple directions, but after our conversation, I really spent a lot of time trying to kind of map out what that would look like, and I do feel comfortable with grade 7 for now. Again, something to keep our eyes on and think about what's the growth potential there. But if there's interest in preserving the option of transitioning from a 7 to an 8 in the next fiscal year, we would need to budget intentionally for that, and it would be a much more significant increase than the 4 to 4.3. So it kind of depends on the board's interest in preserving that as an active opportunity for the coming fiscal year. I think it's going to take some time for somebody coming in to acclimate, to learn the role, to make the role their own, and I'm okay with the 7 for now.
I do like the funding, making sure that it's a funded area. I think that's important as well.
I had a question about, I know we saw this during COVID where we had to do a lot of juggling of funds because people weren't here, so clearly we didn't need those funds, but we needed them elsewhere. We have seen in Chicago is starting to look at, or CPS is starting to look at potentially offering virtual schooling for families that don't feel comfortable leaving their homes. Does this budget allow us to be equipped for a similar situation in Oak Park? I feel like having the additional digital resourcing helps with that, but do we feel like we are equipped if we do start having a significant portion of the community who is not as mobile, not as out and about, for us to still serve that portion of the community?
Are you imagining a new service model being developed, or sort of the shoring up of our existing digital resources? Or both, kind of?
Could I speak? I had this question too, actually, because I mean, I think from Rob's interview and then thinking about COVID, I just keep thinking about how our library has responded to the times, and this is another special time, and so it's like, we don't know, right? So I think there's a lot of question marks, and my question also is like, do we have enough? I think we maybe with this 4.3 have a little bit more, but just like a little bit of room so that we can be nimble if we, I think that's my question around.
And maybe some of the, what was used during COVID in terms of delivering, a larger portion going of delivery or, whatever is needed.
We're in such a unknowing time, right? So it's like things change every day. I think that, that's a good
And
example.
COVID, we didn't know what was gonna be needed, right? We had no idea.
And we
And
could
did a
reallocate
great job.
within the budget to respond in a nimble way.
Mm-hmm.
If the question is, could we maintain all current services and be nimble in creating something different or new? No. So it would be, we would need to make choices as to what we will not be spending, that would be allocated to make room for nimbleness.
So it would have to be like a 1-for-1 trade. Well, not 1-for-1, but like we're eliminating this from here, a little bit over here to put a little bit more in this pot too. But
Yeah.
we wouldn't have enough to just add.
No, there's not.
You said it well, that we have, I'll have to say it in a slightly different way. When the board approves the budget, Yes, we present the line item budget in front of you, but what you'll see in your resolution next month is the resolution will allow for 12.421, if this is the draft, $12.421 million in expenses. That's what you're approving as the $12 million, and how that gets then spent, you use this as a guide, but this is, not to exceed that number.
Okay.
But Ellsworth, when you're saying, is the expectation that we continue everything that we're doing now and create a new service model, that's gonna be tricky, because I think that's when you have to start making choices, and there'll be active choices, I'm sure you'll be alerted to that, and we're involved in those conversations. But in the case of the pandemic, there were huge swaths of our typical operations that we weren't doing,
Yeah.
so we were able to allocate those resources to new things.
Yeah.
And I would say in the past of this organization, and Billy, correct me if I'm speaking too strongly here, there was more intentional cushion to the budget. So there was less effort put into a balanced budget, and in some ways that's really beneficial to the library and the community, and in some ways it's not. So the commitment to a balanced budget right now is impacting how we are approaching this process. I believe that's the best stewardship that we can bring to the table, but it does not contribute to a highly agile environment. And I think the point that was just made about some of the nimbleness during especially the early closure around the pandemic was because there was so much savings. That the idea of something new was sort of like, let's just try it. I do think that Billy's team and finance, the leadership team, the managers, we have the ability to course correct throughout the year, but that does typically mean something is paused or reduced to make room for something new. I think the weight of decision-making around social crises like we are seeing now is a really complicated thing. Do we want to budget more because we expect people to be staying at home? Do we want, what are the things that we're predicting in our community? And if we do want to make space for that, we would need to walk through a little bit where we put that in our budget to be as transparent as possible and honest in our budgeting documents, but still, create that space. So I think we can absolutely create a draft that includes more innovation room, more response room. That would be a more than 4.3 increase. And as we've said a few times, we have a really solid core budget here. So making adjustments and bringing drafts back is a very reasonable ask. That's not, we're not afraid of doing that work. So if there's interest in seeing alternative budgets, we're happy to do that.
I'm just a little uncomfortable with how little fat there is on this. I understand the stewardship, obviously no one wants to raise taxes, but when we're looking at 0.2%, but that's across households, that's $1 more, and not to diminish any dollars, but the library, with everything that's happening right now, the library, we all talk about the library is really important. It's going to be a sanctuary for many people. We don't know what kind of services we might have to provide, and in unstable times, I think it might be the best place to put money. So I guess I would advocate for more.
I'm a little more nervous about it. And I can't believe I'm this librarian saying that, but I'm nervous about going too high. To Christina's point, it's $1, but people are still gonna say, where's it going, what are you spending it on? When it's materials and it's things that it's tangible, I think that's an easier sell to the public. When it's intangibles of we don't know what's gonna happen, when it's new positions, when it's a lot of things, I think it's a little bit more difficult. I'm not saying I'm not opposed to going at all, I'm just saying I think we need to be mindful that to people, there are people in our community that are gonna see the percent, not the dollars. And especially if we're higher than other taxing bodies, they're going to say, what are you doing?
Yeah, but I think that would be our job, to tell that story, to sell that, to explain it, and you know, and be numerate, right? Like, yes, I understand numbers look scary, but at the end of the day, like, we have to do, I mean, what's good for the library is good for the community.
I agree with you, I just think we have to be
Yeah, and
careful,
I
because I think it's
understand
a
that, I
bigger
understand we have to
deal
be,
to people outside this room than to people inside this room.
sure,
And I think that sometimes we need to just remember that,
I
so I just think that.
do remember that, I understand that, but, you know.
And it's tricky because we would love to see some like larger, you know, like what it would look like to support nimbleness and to support some more room in staff, you know, supporting staff, because that is our biggest number, and that is where we could ask you for that though, and have you go through all the work and then say, yeah, we asked for it and we're still gonna go with this smaller number, you know, that like, that's where, like, we don't wanna ask you to do work that we're not going to.
I mean, we shouldn't ask for work that we have no intention of doing,
Right.
but I think like if we do in good faith have intention of saying like, okay, maybe we should, because I'm also, like you said, you know, this is not we're not able to do anything innovative, and it's like, well, when will we be able to do something innovative? And this might be the time when we might need to do something innovative, so.
Maybe like, I mean, I don't see a harm in pursuing it. I think there is such a tension, like
Yeah.
there's always a tension. But it is our job to like, I mean, we had to go to bat for us when we did like 8 whatever %, so it's, maybe like us trustees in the next month can spend time talking to community members, getting a sense of what their concerns might be, or like trying our pitches and seeing how they land, and if you all come back with a 4.5% with some nimbleness like baked in, maybe that could, I mean, I like more options, not fewer, right? So like, I know in the past we've seen like, what is a 4 versus a 4.5 versus a 6 or whatever, if the community just sees us, yeah, I don't know, I'm not decided yet, I definitely am not ready to vote yet, and so I'm glad we're not, but I'm kind of still thinking about if we would, yeah, I'm a little stuck.
So 4.5 would put us at about
Trustees.
20,000 more, right?
Well, it would put us at about a $22 per household increase.
Yeah.
Thereabouts.
Yes, but there's lots of limits to that calculation, like that's assuming that every household has the exact same number of people, the exact same property tax bill, which is not true.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
So it just,
But just to like be able to give
So
people
that-
an idea
Yeah,
of
that-
like what we're talking about. Because the other thing is like, we can say like, oh, that would be higher in percentage than the other taxing bodies, but like.
It's
we
$2.
are-
We're such a small percentage
And our,
of
yes, we're,
taxes.
so like, I don't think, I mean, it's not really a sensible way to like look at it.
I mean,
So
and that's how most community members are going to see it. They're going to see the percentage of all the taxing bodies lined up.
Yeah.
And so it is very much, if we decide that we want to do something higher than any of the other taxing
Then we
bodies,
have
it will
to be prepared to go to bat for it.
It'll
We
be
need to
very
able to
much our
discuss
job to go out and not just to Megan's point, say
Yeah.
where it's going, but also explain, you know, this is on average an extra $2 per household. These are the programs we're doing. This is the reason that we wanted the library to have extra cushioning. These are the programs that we think may be necessary. These are the programs we think may need to be revived. We want to be able to do that. A year is a really long time. You know, this new environment has just started, and now we're trying to predict what is this institution going to need for the next 12 months. I'm sorry, like 15 months, because we're deciding in like October. And you know, we're not clairvoyant, and neither is the staff, but they're doing their best to stay as close to the line as possible. But if we need this library to be the community center that it is, to be the touch point that it is, and for it to remain equitable, because we don't charge for the things that we do internally, then is this the percentage that we have to go back to the community with in order to sustain the things that they're so proud of?
So to your point about, keeping equitable, like I think that, if we're looking at this, at the budget with an equity lens, like I'm wanting to know this variance per household, because I've got this kind of, the way Oak Park is, larger houses on larger lots in the center and smaller and smaller and smaller to the corners, and then apartments. And, we're talking, like, how does it impact, like, how is it likely to impact rents, which is gonna impact people who are, renting? Like, in terms of taxes, like, I wanna have that equity lens on the increase in the budget, not just thinking about the big houses on the big lots in the middle of town who can kind of withstand some changes maybe a little more readily than.
But we can also, we provide like more services, right? Like,
Right, I know, it's like,
So,
this is
like,
the,
maybe
yes.
like it's $1 in your taxes, but like you get, so many services for free.
But if it's an uncertain year economically too, and if people, I know that a ton of people who work for nonprofits who have lost their jobs because they've lost funding.
And you can come to the library to print out your resume for free,
Yes,
so like,
and
I mean,
they still
the
have to
harder
pay
it
their
is, the
rent.
more the library becomes valuable and,
I do wanna say something about the innovation. I heard what Ellsworth said, but there is something to be said for the strategic work, so we can be nimble and we can look at the whole pool and what are we doing, what do we need, right? And I think that there is some real opportunity there for our teams to say, to looking at it and evaluating services and evaluating things, and if we wanna do something new, what are we taking off the plate? But maybe that's something that's not as, maybe it's a need that's being met by another organization or another community. One of the things that we were talking about earlier is we're one of the only taxing bodies that has collections. Other taxing bodies offer programs, the village does a lot of big programs too, and we offer collections, which is something so unique, but there are ways that in tough times you can, get nimble and you can get strategic and you can think about what you're gonna offer. And we're doing a public services strategic planning retreat in October, and we're thinking ahead and we're mapping out next year, and it is hard to predict what kind of programming we need to offer and what kind of services we need to offer, but I think I feel really confident in our staff to be able to adapt.
Yeah, this conversation has brought a lot of thoughts for me, I appreciate it. I think drafts are a good thing. We want the board to have choices, and I think depending on experience with organizational budgets, some people can visualize what this will look like, and some people can't. And I think being able to have a touch point to talk about and to say, okay, so here's the 4%, here's the 4.3, here's the 12. Right? Like, that's good to have something to compare and talk about, because what might happen is from those drafts come a more fine-tuned, like, well, we don't want the 4.3, but we're also not comfortable with 4.8, so let's strike a balance. Mika's point about library use in economic downturns is very salient. It's well documented that the economic downturns lead to library increases. I think that ties into what Susie just said, where we are good at that kind of adjustment and being able to say, okay, we hadn't planned to add these new digital resources, but we're seeing these use patterns. I would also say, I'm not imagining coming back with a new budget line that's like slush fund, where there are very heavier places that we would, I think about, even just thinking about programming. So thinking about the ways we use those budgets to serve marginalized and historically underserved communities. I mean, if you look at the percentage increases in those lines, we're looking at between 0.02 and 0.28 as far as increases from last year in this version of the budget.
One column over, that was the
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, the
yeah.
percentage. So we're looking at,
It's actually increasing quite a lot.
so some of them are increasing,
But we're correctly budgeting for Friends money.
Where are we?
Complicated.
Sorry,
if you look at page 73, we're talking about, I'm just looking at the public service programming area. So those lines are increasing between 0% and 52%. So the 52% is impacted by the reimbursement of Friends money. But community engagement, social services, young adult, these are all programming areas that we could confidently say, if there is nimbleness needed in our organization to serve patrons during a recession or during increased attacks on immigrants or other populations, these are places, there are places in the budget I think we'd be confident saying that's where we're gonna use those funds. So it wouldn't be, scattershot like just random increases. The reality though is, just like 4.3 does not make us able to be nimble, 4.5 also will not. I think if we're looking for like active change readiness, so we have the option of internal strategy, which we do all the time. This is work we know how to do. But if it would make the board feel more confident in our quick agility, and in terms of things like, what if we need to shore up technology? What if we need to add circulating technology? What if we need to, all of these what ifs? I think that we would be looking at a significantly higher number. I'm not saying 8, but I don't think that, that another $20,000.
Yeah, at least we're gonna cut it.
So maybe that's like, yeah, I don't know, cause then it becomes the question of like, well then, is it worth, yeah, I don't wanna speak more.
I'm always gonna say it's worth it, because
No,
I feel like
I
every,
wasn't finished with my question, but I didn't have it articulated, so it's okay.
All right, I'm gonna drag us back to the agenda then. What is our ask of Billy and the staff? Because next month will be October, and I would very much like for us to be able to hopefully approve something next month.
Yeah, per our regular schedule, we would plan to approve it next month so we can give it to the village to incorporate into their budget.
This is not an ask from the board, this is just a question. Now, when you were saying it impacts different households differently and all that, is there data on that or no? Like about how increases
Where my
in
mind,
taxes within?
I'm not aware of anything off the top of my head, but where I'm going is I'd contact the township assessor and have a conversation to see if there is, he's amazing with information, so he may have something I'm not aware of, but that's.
I would guess there's some kind of
I can ask
a range document. I don't know how granular would even be helpful, but I feel like I bet we could get some.
All that data is available on property tax bills. It's 35,000 households in Oak Park, or I don't know how many households in Oak Park, but like that's a lot. I don't know if anyone's done any work to make it digestible.
And types of households. That's what I keep thinking of, it's like I guess I'm more worried about the equity impact on the village and impacting than I am on what somebody might say on Facebook.
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm saying.
So, and I heard when you were talking earlier, it made me think of, the difference between 4, 4.3, or even if we did 8% this year, 1 year of doing that is not really the problem, and especially not when we talk about our 5% of the property tax bill. But it's years of all the taxing bodies that like year over year doing that, and so yeah, and if you're looking at it just like today, making this decision, do 2%, do 10%. It's really that 1 year is not going to throw everything off. But it's the compounding of that, over many years, where you start to see that impact. And I just want to add to the economic downturn and people turning to libraries. It's a great point to make. Also, it's such an interesting place to be in, is that we have more demand, but also the people who are demanding that are the ones that are paying, are the ones funding the library, the ones paying the property tax bill. So, directly or indirectly.
You said there's substantial research on like how, when there's economic downturn, the level, maybe like that is something that could help us.
And, conversations with the community.
Just, so I would like to see a budget that is, would give us agility. I would like to see that.
Would give us,
What percent are you thinking about?
I don't know, that I don't know.
Well,
Like,
that's
'cause
the thing, it's a numbers thing, so like.
Well, I mean, no, like what Ellsworth and like what you would think, and I think you might know, and you may not know the percentage, but like this is what it would look like. I would like to see that. I wouldn't, and then we can talk, right? Like, not that we're committing to that. Like I don't, if you are okay with doing the work,
It's already done.
It's already, right, and that's what I'm hearing, so if it's already done, like, I don't.
Done is too simple of a word, like the conversations have been had, like, if you're saying go back and see like where you would add money, to be more responsive to the community's needs, I mean, there's places right now where we think we don't want to add that money.
Because like Susie, what you're saying, and like I believe that, and I think that's also like, we trust that you do, like manage it, and you will be creative, but also like it can be both. And
so what is that agile number?
I don't know,
Yeah,
I
something,
think,
I need a number, I need a
that's
number, I need something.
I mean, can
I don't know.
you bring it back and then we'll have it? Like, we're not voting on whether we're gonna do it.
No, but
But
like.
we have to vote
no,
next
we
time,
should
so if they're
vote
gonna come
next
back with
time.
8,
So we need to
I'm not gonna vote yes on it.
Or maybe we would need.
you could give you two
feedback.
versions,
Yeah.
give you two versions.
Like, it would be nice to almost hear from you all, like you have said, both of you have said, like, even this budget will hardly maintain our services, so like, if you could do everything currently and have agility, what would that look like? And like, probably we won't vote on that, and it would be good to communicate that to the community, to me, like, I would like to be able to say, look, our library would love, actually, if we funded everything to the fullest and did everything in our strategic plan to the fullest, like, this is what it would cost us, and because we are stewards of your tax dollar, we are going to be reasonable people and do a 4 point whatever.
I like
So
that,
that could work. I mean, I would love to know like what you dream up of an agile budget.
And not like a.
Well, I mean,
Even
even when we look at you and we say dream up, we still know you're like cost, I can see you cost cutting in your head.
I was gonna say, Ellsworth and I should write down our numbers right now and.
Price is right, like, who knew?
But, I mean, I was imagining at least $200,000, and $200,000 is another like 3%, so. But I don't
So
know.
that's
It's
almost
close
back up
to
to
8.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, to be really honest, I agree with you that $200 is a reasonable number to put out there. That is a little bit of agility as well. I mean,
It's what?
It's a little bit of agility. That's
No, that's, because I mean, think about it, it's a people thing, and how many salaries is
it's
that?
people,
Like,
it's people, that's where the money's.
That's where 75% of our budget is, that's why you can't move the needle.
Yeah, that's not, I mean, because that's how many, because you think about the paying a person, but
Yeah.
paying for them and benefits and everything else, like, it's a person.
And what we
Right.
don't wanna do is increase tax burden and not provide better services.
Right,
Well,
right.
Yeah, that's why I would need context for like, what is better services, like what are we not doing,
Well, I've heard from you all that like this 4.3 would hardly maintain services, so like, I don't know, I'm throwing it back to you all, like what is,
I think what you just said is really important around being able to show the benefit.
Yeah.
We are in an economic climate where showing the benefit might be the hold wait time only went up 20%. That's what we can show you in return for an increased tax.
But the what?
So we might be able to say
the
like,
whole
well,
wait time.
the whole wait
Oh,
time
gotcha.
went up a smaller amount than we thought it would, because everything is getting more expensive. So from the paper we buy, to the fuel we use in the building, to the materials we put on the shelves, health insurance. So there's an element of this that takes away the fun of budgeting, which is usually we add to add. So we have a new idea for a service, we're gonna do it, so we need 0.2%. We're now talking about we care deeply about maintaining health insurance for our staff. So that alone accounts for a part of this increase. And it's a sadder story for constituents than in some budget environments where it is all about wait until you see the building project we have planned, like it's gonna blow your mind. This is about maintenance and about, trying to be stewards in a volatile economic environment. So I think it's really complicated. But bringing back drafts, I think the hardest scenario, and Billy, jump in, this is obviously my first budget cycle here. There would be some it would make it a little bit tougher if we brought back multiple drafts and then there was like a la carte conversation in the meeting, where it was sort of like, okay, we like the programming budget for this draft, but we want the facilities.
We need to vote on it.
But, I
It's not
mean, Billy
impossible.
explained, we're voting on a number.
Yes.
And it's up to the staff to
Yes.
allocate and be agile with that number. We have an idea of where things are going, but as we've all just discussed a lot, we don't know where it's gonna need to go. So, but I don't think we need to do a la carte, pick and choose where things are going. I think it's a good idea for us to have an idea of where the staff would want the money to go for us to have those conversations out in the community, but I don't think we're gonna be, combo mealing the budget.
I do think it's value, we're not a la carte, we trust you more than that. What we do need though, for speaking in the community, is kind of, what some of these increases are, and honestly, so that we can go and say why is everything going up? What does it mean everything is going up at the library? People don't think about their library and all the work that you all have to do to make their little trip, like their kindergartner who wants to go to the library and loves the library and likes to do these things. They're just not thinking about all that goes into it.
So it's one of the taxing bodies that people are not forced to interact with, right? It's not like the school,
Right.
where people are forced to interact with it, so.
But it's also the most beloved in the town.
Yes,
Well, and I was
And the
thinking
most
about,
needed.
yes.
you guys were talking about like how to quantify like the tariff impact, so it's like when you talk about like a kid coming in for a craft, they bought that supplies on Amazon, when Amazon was like posting what it was costing, and then they got pushed back and they stopped, but like, that's an example, the kid's craft is now, taking more money to buy the egg carton or the paper plates or whatever it is, but can we source it from somewhere else? Can we, see what we already have? I think that's what I think our staff is really good at, is making these hard choices, but I think where the increase is just like programming, it's like everything is going up, and it is hard when at that big swath.
And like something like hold times, like maybe if we can have a concise explanation of how hold times are impacted by budget.
No, I think that's not something most people can draw a straight line to.
No.
And I think people would also be really surprised, and this is all public information, but the amount of resources that go into cleaning supplies, paper products in the restrooms, things that are core to our services. We're not going to stop putting soap in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And the need may go up as people need the library more as a place to be, or as they're looking for jobs.
Another sort of impossible to accurately predict piece of budgeting is, will we see partner organizations with decreased funding or ceasing to exist? So are there places that some of our users meet some of their needs, especially those overlapping needs, that we're gonna see an increase in? We don't know yet.
And to Suzanne's point, we've lost a lot of nonprofits.
Nonprofits, academic environments, jobs are being lost left and right, and we have very high percentage in Parkville, and I went to some kind of gathering for somebody who, in academia, who was getting, I don't know, anyway, it's not important. The point is, it was in Oak Park, well, it was actually at Fitzgerald, but there were a number of BIPOC academics who came to celebrate their friend schools are living out of Oak Park, and they had all moved out of Oak Park because it wasn't economically viable to stay here as an academic. And that, I don't want to contribute to that, and I know we're such a small percentage as the library, that's what's so tough, is that we do such a large portion of services that are essential right now, but we're such a small yeah, even if we're at 5%, we're 5% of a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Compared to the village that's,
I just think that's on us to be that voice of like the why and the advocate for the library. Like there's so many reasons, like I would have so much to say, and it's the village, it's the police and fire, it's the, like, it's all these other things that it's not us, so
I know.
I'm not willing to sacrifice the library for, like, the library is not the reason people can't afford to live here.
No,
And
that's
so,
what we have control over.
it is, yeah, it is, but
So
yeah,
if we had
that's
to,
never gonna be a reason I don't, like, I don't know.
if we
No,
had
go
to
ahead.
ask Billy
Say
for
it. It's
2
okay.
numbers, what would those numbers be? I heard 8 before, I don't know if that's just all of our, budgeting trauma speaking.
I mean, similarly, I'm not voting to approve an 8, but I would love to see, like, I mean, for me as a community member, I would be interested to be like, wow, the library is really responsible because they actually want a $20 million budget, but they're making it work with 12, like it is just, you all do so much, and of course you could do more with more funds, but I also think it allows you to dream a little bit of like what you could, I don't know, I just am kind of curious now, and I don't know what the other number would be, I don't know.
We've dreamt, part of this actually, we dream, a lot of creative, passionate people at the library.
Yeah.
So I'm almost tempted to say like if you wanna see the work, like what that might look like, I'm, Ellsworth and I'm willing to do the work to say what would, if we like kind of took as hard as we've worked to put all these restrictions in place to try to control.
Rip those guardrails out.
Yeah, what if we removed them for a month and said, okay, know that this is likely not to, this is being done for illustrative purposes, but let's see what the budget
Yes.
might look like. But what's the other draft you want to see? Is it the 4.3 or is it the 4.0?
I mean, we've seen 4, we've seen 4.3. Do we wanna ask for 4.5 or 5?
But we were told that
4.5 is
was
just
the
20 more
number.
thousand.
Yeah, I think I like the 4.3. I mean, I don't know if you wanna see something in between the 4.3 and sky's the limit.
That was
Like,
my question, like,
I
if
don't-
8 doesn't get Billy his dream, like, and it ends up being, I don't know, 20%, like, we need something between there and 4.3.
Yeah.
We're not math people. I'm not a math, we're not going to.
It's a fun
Yeah, don't go home thinking.
If the question is, can you approve it today, the answer is yes. If you just wanna say 20%, we can.
Our suspiciously missing finance
Yeah.
officer.
Wait, I was supposed to represent that committee, don't roll over when he's not there.
But Billy's point about sort of the conversations already happening, that's important because the leadership team puts a lot of energy and effort into hearing from their teams, synthesizing what their teams are asking for. These are group meetings, one-on-one meetings, really talking through like what are your different aspirations. So I do think we have a lot of anecdotal, a lot of quantitative, a lot of qualitative, like there is a lot of information to pull from. So I
Well,
don't.
then maybe you don't have to pull an actual budget, but just sharing those notes, like I don't wanna, it sounds like this might be more work for y'all since these are dreams and not like actual numbers now, but I don't know, I'm comfortable with just notes too.
I think bringing back multiple drafts is fine. I would want to give the board the information they need to think through and talk through the options on the table.
I mean, I wanna go on record and say, like, I would vote for 8, like, I don't have this, like, weird feeling, it's not the percentage, right? Like, it's like, what is,
It's just,
No.
And the village also has a 4%, and that actually changes each household by like $200 or something, then it starts.
Is that
adding
what
up.
they are?
No, I don't know,
Oh,
that's the
okay.
thing too, I was
Do
gonna
we know
ask,
anything
does anyone
about
heard?
But we
I
are the
don't.
most beloved institution and
And
sounds
we
like
offer
this
the
is.
most, like.
And we offer the most
I
for the
know.
least, and
I
like,
know.
I'm okay to advocate to like, let's put our money where, or, you know, our mouth is, or our heart is.
When we did aid, it did hurt people, I think it really did, it was, I don't know, it's hard.
I think it was an emotional hurt because it
Yeah.
felt a little bit like, oh, maybe you guys don't care about equity
Yeah.
as much as we thought. If you're comfortable with asking for 8%, and to your point, 8% from the library is very different from 8% from any other taxing body. But the message to the community was still, 8 is pretty close to 10. We're okay asking you for
Yes.
that much more.
And we also did aid with the presumption that we hopefully wouldn't have to do that high again.
Yeah.
Like, we kind of did hope to keep it around like the 34 mark for the next
And we
few
also,
years.
we explained some things in some ways that didn't end up being accurate, and I don't want to, I don't want to run into that. I want to make sure that,
Yeah, so I think like,
Where we
yes, we
go
need
with
to be,
this.
we need to be responsible and we need to like communicate clearly and accurately, like this is our job. But like, we're
And
here,
it's-
we're here, we're here, we're here
And this is
to
such a
advocate
crisis
for the
time.
library.
What is it?
and this is such a crisis time when the library is going to be needed more and more.
But we have to admit, look, 5% isn't gonna do it, 6% probably isn't gonna do it.
But then we start to get people's attention and then also not do it, so that's a lose-lose.
Yeah, well, so if we get people's attention, then we gotta do it.
But I don't know that eight's
But I was gonna say, I don't know if
Eight's
it's
not gonna do it.
$200,000.
What is
This
gonna
is
do
what,
it?
we don't know, this is why I'm saying, I wanna know what's gonna do it.
So maybe before next meeting, we can also get a sense, I can learn from IGov, like, I will learn from IGov where people are probably gonna land with budget, and maybe if other people can find out too, like if they hear, because
think
that
that we
does
land
influence it,
earlier
like
than
where
others.
other districts do.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some information, I don't know if I'm gonna share it in a public meeting, but I mean, we're, hearing doing 3 is not really, like,
Nobody's doing it.
nobody's doing 3. However, D97 did share their, budget slides, like, over the last month. It looks like they might be doing around 3, don't quote me on that, but around 3, but they also had some additional revenue from other sources, that came in, that allowed them to do, closer to 3. But yeah, the parks, the township and the village, I don't know, definitely not, close to, I'm not hearing 3%, I'm also not hearing 5%, so.
And don't they come up with their numbers after us, because we have to then.
Yeah, they're probably having, their internal conversations are happening now, we'll
Oh,
hear
so
more,
we
we'll
were
hear
saying-
more in the next month or two.
But I mean, they don't have, we have to come ahead of them, because
Yeah.
we're submitting to the
We're-
village.
yes.
Yeah, so.
I think that we can meet and use the information from this conversation to come back with an additional 1 or 2 drafts that we will do our best to meet the expectations from this conversation. And I think this has been a really good conversation. I really appreciate hearing the individual perspectives. Do you think that we can, from this, come back with a couple of?
Yeah, I think the only thing I've added to that is I would like, because I would like to see action taken at the next meeting, I want to be able to present a budget that would be a budget and an associated resolution that could be approved at that meeting. So,
Well, I think we already know that the dream budget is more about us knowing what we are not going to be able to do, or where money might potentially toggle if necessary. And then the real conversation is somewhere between 4 and %. I don't know, I keep thinking like, we've seen a 4.3, do we wanna see 5? But then if we're like, oh, that's too, like, it still doesn't, between
I mean,
4.3 and
what-
5 still
what is-
doesn't move.
what is
We
the
can
point?
always go back and vote on 4.3 next month.
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So,
So we can do that, and then what is actually,
Do we wanna see 5 and
Do
then
you
the
need to have
dream?
only one
I don't-
resolution?
No, it can be
I'm not
multiple,
married to
right?
the
As long as
percentage,
they're-
like, I wanna see what will do something, you know, like, I wanna see, it's like, what's 5%, I don't, you know, like, that's
Yeah,
not, that's
it's
not like,
doesn't-
sure, like, that's the thing that we have to solve it, but like, I wanna see the number that will actually do the work that needs to be done, and then we'll see if that number is something we can stomach or not.
When you're saying the work that needs to be done, well, what's that?
You know, to be, I mean, like, right now, we're barely gonna scrape by is 4.3, right?
So what gets us agile and innovative?
I mean, there's good work being done, it's, and
Oh, yeah, no one's
the
denying
question
You
is.
take everything from this year and move over to next year, it's still like, it's just, we're not able to add things.
Right, yeah, the big problem is.
So that's,
is
I mean,
the
that's something
agility.
that, like, all
in this
the board
environment.
knows, like, the leadership teams, like, that's what you guys know, so like, I wanna see.
Is there any benefit in being like semi-nimble?
Yeah, I think that there is, and I think that, the more I think through this, listening to this group talk, I think that we can really clearly storytell with the next drafts we bring forward what the impacts will be. So if we're predicting, if we're doing the math with collections to figure out how could we make the hold lists go down, how could we make, looking at the things that we do but could be more responsive in, that feels both like good stewardship, but also like a service improvement. I think looking at program expansion related to the marginalized communities most impacted by current events, through the lens of what are our staff and resources, what else are we committed to? So I think there's logical pieces that will not come back at 40%, right? It's sort of figuring out what can we put forward that is understandable, because it could be, yeah, here are the 4 talking points. We're making the collections more accessible because we know people are using them more when their own power to buy goes down. We're doing program expansion around marginalized communities impacted by current social events. We're like kind of to break it down in that way, it will both illustrate that this isn't a budget draft that's gonna say, we're gonna start circulating, you know, ponies. We're talking about, like, logical library service, but that's above kind of that bare bones increase. And
Or it's like some of the things learned from COVID without the benefit of the cut in services of COVID is kind of what I think we're talking about, is like, you know, a deep need from something that's out of our control,
But not for the
but
whole
without having,
population.
you know, COVID, there was all the buildings were not open and, you know, all the.
I mean, to speak to the equity piece, it's like, yes, we will have to ask for more money, but then like, who is most impacted by the recent, you know, it's not going to be, right, like, the people that are super well resourced. It is gonna be the people with like more limited resource or a marginalized community, and so it's like, if the services are focused on that, then that can speak to the equity piece, it's like, yes. And if you have $1 million home, like, you're gonna be paying more money for the library than if you
Can
don't.
I make one request? If we are going to have 2 additional versions of a budget to review, that we get them perhaps 2 weeks before the next meeting so that we can actually review them and not sit here and talk about them. No is an okay answer.
Instead of one last
We
week.
talked about it feeling like a luxury to have 5 weeks between
Yeah.
meetings.
Just sap
that just
up,
went-
sap that up.
No is an okay
Yeah,
answer.
I think, you know, giving us 3 weeks to work on it, yes.
I'll take a week. I just don't want people to come and have to discuss both of them here. I want everyone to have ample time to look at them and understand them and come here informed with opinions and ideas.
Yeah.
I think we could do a week before, and the next
Okay.
finance meeting is
it's literally a week before the,
Okay, because I was thinking that would be another opportunity, those are already open meetings, so any interested trustee could
yeah,
attend.
so, I mean, like a week and a half or so, we have to have them, week and a half before the board meeting, we have to have them available, ready anyway, because to talk about it at the finance committee meeting. But yeah, it would be an opportunity to talk about it more in depth before the,
Okay,
before the.
I appreciate that.
So it sounds like there's gonna be at least 2, if not 3 drafts of the budget, with, explanations for why there's like the two other versions. And I think we have to decide if we wanna have, a draft budget and a resolution for each of them, which I think might as well have the biggest one ready, just in case you decide, hey, let's go for it.
Yeah.
But,
Don't know what will happen in the next month that might
A what?
convince us it's worth it.
okay, all right, so.
Everything is changing every day.
Right, so, I mean, I have enough to go, I have enough to work on. I think it's, the only question I have is, like, do you wanna see the 4% back in the mix?
I think, no, I think we're
No.
over the
Okay, so
4%.
4.3 is the base, and then we just kind of offer another, at least one other version, if not 2 versions of,
A semi
Like-
nimble and a nimble.
yeah.
Yes, please.
And I think among the trustees, it's important to remember that like it's tensions among all these things, you
Oh,
know?
of
And
course.
that it's not, you know, one of us wants, you know, this and the other, like, there's inherent tensions.
And, you know, and to that long term, I think like it is important to think of an alternative income source because
On
we
that
don't
one.
want to keep, in the long term, we don't want to keep raising it every time 8%, you know, and that's what Billy's saying, like, raising it once is not, it's not going to be significant, but if every year it's like that, then it will be significant.
It's compounded.
Just know that alternative income sources come with baggage sometimes
Of
too.
course, so I'm just saying, but we should consider it,
Strengths,
and we should think,
economic.
at least like, also to show
Equity
stewardship,
issues.
right?
Hmm?
We should try, also to
We
show.
should try.
We should try, we should think about it, we should.
Yeah, raising. That's a whole other conversation that's probably too late to get into, but yeah, when you've got, then I talk about tensions, when you've got a taxing body, but then it's also raising funds in other ways and
Yeah,
who's-
and other
which
places do
strings
it,
are going to
so.
attach to it.
I say we tackle that after the budget.
Yes,
That's a January item.
yes.
All right, any other discussion on the budget before we move on to our last action item?
No, just thank you.
Thank you
Yes,
very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, last item, library facilities, staff access, use, and restrictions policy.
Has already had one go through or no?
No,
No,
this is
we haven't had that.
this is the first time this is coming before the board. So this, just one policy tonight. And this policy hadn't been reviewed since 2002. Billy took the lead on this. And this is a little bit of a departure from the way we had been doing them because this one required a complete rewrite, both for accuracy and while we were in there for tone. So Billy put a lot of work into this. It feels pretty self-explanatory to me in terms of the improvements in, again, making the content up to date and a little bit easier to read. But still goes over sort of the same general topic of who has access to what spaces. Billy, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think it maintains that the executive director is the one who gets to gets to decide order designee. But also, I mean, the new policy is updated to match what we're actually doing today. It does remove some of the practices, or I'm sorry, not some of the procedural stuff. And I think it also makes it clear to the employee, you know, just like what are we trying to accomplish with this policy? So that, you know, the executive director is going to decide who has access to what spaces and when.
And the landscape has changed significantly from the first draft of this, from the standing draft to the updated. There used to be much more restriction in how staff could move around the building and what types of staff had access to different stairwells and things like that. So that has broadened quite a bit, and I think this policy speaks better to, speaks
Yeah.
more accurately to our.
This was years ago where we questioned all of that, like who has access to what spaces, like, well, why, I mean, but they come down to like, there are a few restricted spaces that do make sense to restrict. I listed some of those there, like, you know, the roof, the server room, the technology room, special collections, but otherwise staff should be able to move freely throughout the building. Also, it's a safety concern too, you know, like, you try to get into the admin area, and staff would actually not be able to access the admin area previously. This was years ago that we fixed that, but this is reflecting that more general access.
So this was last approved in 2002, and they're, like, when the equity audit happened, how many of the policies, like?
This was not included in that
It was
one,
not,
yeah.
okay, I was gonna say.
It was not, and if it was, I can only imagine like the comments that would have been
Right.
said. I did talk to a colleague at HR Source about, you know, do we even need to have this policy? Like, does it need to be at the policy level? And, you know, we kind of fell back to like, well, if you don't have at least the basics of the policy, then it's gonna be hard to hold people accountable to it, if needed. So, it was interesting that the comment I got immediately was, what happened in 2002 that this policy was needed? But, you know, I think now it's just clear, just more, yeah, it's just kind of just like a, yeah, just make sure that the basics are covered, like you should access only spaces you're supposed to be in at the hours you're supposed to do that, and the director can decide that, what's appropriate.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? I will entertain a motion then.
So moved.
Oh, I'm sorry, I will entertain a motion to approve the policy, not just any motion. I will entertain a motion to approve the policy for library access for staff members.
So
And
moved.
it's moved by Christina, do I have a second?
Second.
Suzanne, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It passes and is accepted. Fantastic. I will hit my return to agenda button again.
I know this is like really rude since you just added the return to agenda button, which is so lovely. Is there any way the agenda could have buttons that go to the pages?
You know, that's next.
Yeah,
Stay
we're working
tuned.
on
We
that.
had a quick turnaround.
Cause that would be like,
That,
when you go back
I
and then you go there.
I have been doing it all night when I'm scrolling, so yes,
Okay.
hopefully.
Yes.
Well, cause I also download so that I can like highlight and stuff,
Okay,
and so then I don't necessarily have the same pages everybody's talking about, and I'm sitting,
yeah,
We're working on that part.
stay tuned.
very exciting.
All right, having concluded all of the business on our agenda, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
You guys don't want to go?
Don't you get to just state that one?
I don't.
Really, I thought that one you did.
I wish.
Well, it never hurts to vote.
I know, but I
Always
just.
over.
All right, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good evening.
Before 9 PM and in budget season
Yes.
with a robust
High-fiving a million
discussion,
angels.
just saying.
Very well done.